The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you in on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We will talk portal departures, portal additions. It's the same theme as we move forward here, trying to grind our way to December 28th when the portal actually closes. But, a bowl game. Hope you're well. Hope you're making your way through this happy holiday season. 489-1240, 489-1240 to get in. 800-825-5865 to dial up. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. Find us and watch the show. A couple of different ways to do so. Different social media platforms. Hail Varsity YouTube, where you can like and subscribe. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Follow us there at HVarsity Radio. You can find Elijah on Twitter at Herbalessence, at Schmidt_radio for me. We'll get our starting five shout-outs going. How are things trending with some names that have been to check out Nebraska football? Of course, one defensive lineman in. That's Jalen George out of Eastern Tennessee State University. We'll tell you a little bit about Mr. George. We will have plenty of reaction to Dante Dowdell into the portal. Hurts, stings, but maybe just for the moment, because Nebraska will maybe add or look towards the youth movement on top of having Emmett Johnson back. So a lot to get into. We'll spend some time with Mitch Sherman here in about 15 minutes from The Athletic. Mitch will join us, get to hour one going. In hour two, Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7 Sports. Bruntsy in about an hour. And then we'll sit down an extended stay with Mr. Jeremiah Sirles. We'll talk, what he's hearing when it goes to market price for players in this wild, wild west of the portal. We'll get some thoughts from Sirles on what he thinks of this Husker football season, a little NFL as well, and maybe some stories of Santa visiting his teams when he played with Nebraska. 489-1240 to get in. Thanks for making us part of your day. Mike is in. Good to have Mike checking in. Black Hills Brennan says, afternoon, gents. Good to have you, Black Hills Brennan. The other Dave here. The other Dave is lobbying for a wide receiver. I hear you, other Dave. Jay is in, and he is seconding the motion when we talk about some stud wide receivers. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is here. Uncle Larry in Arlo here. And good to have Arlo in as well, along with Uncle Larry. Great Red Shark is in and ready to employ liberal use of the block function so I don't add to chat pollution and annoy anyone else. Great Red Shark, you just chat away, brother. Wrestling Oranges is here. Coach Brandon in. Mr. Erickson from South Dakota. Patrick. Good to have Patrick. Dion back at it. Good to have you, Dion, checking us out here on Hail Varsity. Anonymous. Dante Dowdell, says Anonymous, says Dante can't find a hole to run through, but he sure knows how to find the portal.
A low blow.
A little bit. But Anonymous, you're quite welcome with your opinion. Skylar is here. Ronnie is in. Justin, good to have you. Justin, Scott is here. Tuck in. Walter from Philly, south of Philly, asking if Ed is still here. Yes. Elijah, we love you. Is this you, Elijah? Or is this the other Elijah?
It's got to be the other Elijah.
Okay. Well, this show, he says, equals pure excellence.
Well, I don't disagree.
The other Elijah with another mustache. Stank Neuter is here. Jeff is in. And our friends with the Big Red Junkies podcast. Good to have you in. So we will get to more of your comments in the stream. Who is kicking us off?
Steve in Lincoln.
A non-paid phone call from Steve. Steve, how we doing?
I do think he might have another restaurant suggestion for us.
Okay, so Steve, we have another restaurant suggestion for Nebraskans going to New York.
Oh, absolutely, Chris and Elijah. But once again, I got to pay compliment your radio show, Hail Varsity Husker. It's just great, super information. Great program, and here's my next restaurant recommendation for those Husker fans going to the Pinstripe Bowl. Are you ready, Chris?
We are ready to rock.
All right. Katz's Delicatessen.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of it then. A very famous sandwich shop. Excellent sandwiches. Just a really great deli to go to. Katz's, I highly recommend it.
Is it worth the $25 you have to spend on a sandwich or whatever?
I think if you get the right pastrami, it's worth every penny.
Right, absolutely. And that delicatessen, that being Katz's Delicatessen, is super great, just like your radio program, sir.
I am starting to blush. Steve, God love you. We'll talk soon. Thank you much. Appreciate hearing from Steve. It always kind of gets us off on the right foot. It's like a shock play on 1st and 10 on the drive.
And Schmitty, with you and I not officially going to New York City, who knows what can change between now and
I am not
from now.
Heading east, and I'm not freezing.
Yeah, the open air press box is what really sealed the deal for me. I don't want to go sit out in the cold. I'm not like a wuss, but at the same time, that doesn't sound enjoyable. I will say, though, for any Husker fans making their way out, if you stop by any of these great restaurants, send us a picture, tweet at us. We want to see you stop by Steve's restaurant recommendations. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, and for sure, I want to see shots of, not like shots, but I mean just pictures of you in Little Italy. All right, I got to clarify that. Skylar is in. Let's dive into Dante Dowdell. And, okay, reaction. Bummed, not so much. And this isn't piling on Dante at all. I mean this. Guy was a guy we were excited about from Oregon. Oregon clearly did him a little dirty, in my humble opinion, by playing him and not preserving the red shirt. I mean, he didn't carry the ball hardly at all to use a year of eligibility. Now you have the free movement with college football, and Nebraska got a guy we were all pretty excited about. When you look at the star ranking coming out, you look at what he did in Lincoln, 600-plus yards, 12 touchdowns. That's nothing to sneeze at, but more so kind of the tone he set, especially in that Colorado game, busting up a Coach Prime family member with that physical running. You loved his downhill thump. You liked what you saw, and I liked what I saw, especially once Dana Holgerson got here. That being said, did you catch yourself, okay, is Dante the clear-cut one? Or did you find yourself saying, man, Emmett's sure looking good. I sure wish Emmett would get the ball more. Emmett's back. That's good for Nebraska, their run game. But moving into 2025, it would have been incredible for Nebraska to be able to keep both because they're known quantities, with the presuming they keep getting better, right? And Emmett has a ceiling to reach. Dante, for sure, in his young career, has a ceiling to reach, and I think Dante could become a better back under Dana and under this offense with the demands when it comes to vision and Coach Rule from the get-go wants home run ability. And I don't know that Dante last season gave you home run ability, had a handful of runs, 17, 18, 19 yards. But really, I mean, he looked great against USC, looked really, really good against Wisconsin. I mean, so he was turning the corner. The thing about Dante Dowdell is eventually he's going to need to stick and stay and put a year in. And whether that's part-time carries, full-time carries, or whatever his role may be at his next stop. It's going to be the heavy back. It's going to be the goal line guy. But he needs to expand that role. And he needs to stay somewhere long enough to put the work in. And he put the work in here. He was a favorite, in my opinion, of Satterfield. They rode him a lot. They gave him the end zone, the red zone carries. And I don't know if that was appeasement, if that was wise, and a lot of times it did. He paid off at the goal line for touchdowns. There was also a costly fumble. I'm just laying it all out there against Indiana, trying to jump from, I don't know, Walter Payton land. So it could have been better. But at some point, Dante is going to need to stay and develop. The early school I'm hearing that's interested in him is Michigan. That's nothing to sneeze at. He fits that physical run ability. And my read on this is things were all set with Nebraska and Dowdell for 2025. Here's your NIL bump, and let's run it back for 2025. You and Emmett, a 1-2 punch.
Well, let's
that changed because you have an inflated, insane market right now, Elijah, with guys with experience.
That's where I was going to go. Is timing here is I think you can read a lot into what's going on behind the scenes if you read the tea leaves here with timing. And no, there's no one from Dante Dowdell's camp who is talking to me and telling me what's going on. I'm purely reading from the outside looking in. But if you look at the timing, the majority of the transfer portal departures happened 2 weeks ago and into last week. The names entering the portal, they're still coming, but it's kind of trickling out now as opposed to coming like the floodgates we saw. So you have to ask the question, why would a guy in Dowdell enter his name into the portal now? Because if it was about being unhappy...
Someone's getting to his camp saying we got more money than we're going to pay more money to leave than stay.
That's where I'm going. Because 2 weeks ago, if you were unhappy with your time at Nebraska, you'd probably enter the portal 2 weeks ago. If you thought that Emmett Johnson coming back was going to eat into your playing time and you weren't going to have a role next year, you probably would have been gone last week. I don't think this is about a guy that's unhappy. This is not about a guy that's not going to get playing time next year. The two different places that I go is one... Nebraska has some guy in the back pocket, and they're looking at Dowdell, and they're going, you know what, we're not sure if we're going to have room for you in the rotation next year, which would be because Nebraska wouldn't found a guy, or probably the more likely scenario here is some other school struck out on option 1 and 2, and now they are looking at their bags of money and saying, what do we do with this? Well, we still need a running back, and our value on a guy in Dante Dowdell is more than Nebraska's, because with Dowdell, I think it was clear at the end of the year what his role in the Holgorsen offense is going to be a guy that rotates in, gets 5 to 10 carries a game as a rotational piece, but then he's your short yardage thumper. And I think there are other schools out there that are going to have a higher premium on Dowdell than what Nebraska is going to have as a guy who, for the most part, is a specialty short yardage, 3rd and goal, 3rd and 1 type back that can run behind his pads, get you that yard, and then get off the field, in addition to the 5 to 10 carries a game you get as a rotational piece whenever Emmett Johnson needs a blow. Like, that's what he is to Nebraska. There's probably other schools out there that are going to look at Dowdell and say, we have a bigger role for you, and therefore we're going to have a bigger check for you.
There's upside, and we don't know if Dowdell's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher at his next stop, if he's going to be RB1. I think he had potential to be RB1, but right now I don't think he's the best back in front of Emmett. I like what Emmett can do, at least when I saw apples to apples under Dana Holgorsen's run game. Quite frankly, both backs looked reborn once Dana got the reins of play calling. That offensive line moved people, and it was good to see. Game Dog... and he checks in and says Dana came in and Dante knew he was going to be number 2 and maybe number 3 if a decent recruit or portal back came in. Game Dog says no surprise, he's gone. And yeah, I mean, you gotta fight for the carries. And
it's the reality of what Barney talked about with us multiple weeks ago, where depth in college football is going away because of A, the 105, and B, as I kind of laid out earlier, there is teams across the country that need your backups more than you do, and they will pay a premium for your backups more than you will. And I think that's probably what we're seeing here.
Well, and listen, wish him well. I hope he has a great career somewhere else, and good back. Good back. Is he an conference back. I think the upside is there for that, but he's got to stay and play somewhere long enough. And you just hope he doesn't go Marcus Dupree on you if he stays in the Big Ten. So how big a loss is he? It's a loss. It stings, but I think Nebraska will be able to manage it okay. You had known 1-2 moving forward here. Captain.
And also quickly here to go Moneyball on you. If you look at the value you'd have to probably pay to keep a guy in Dowdell, do you think you can find one or two guys that can replace him in the aggregate, where you get a guy that can get 5 to 10 carries a game whenever Emmett Johnson is tired, and then another guy who can be your downhill 3rd and 1 or 3rd and goal type thumper?
You'll find another big back, but you hope you have one on your roster, because right now you're going to pay Dowdell money. I mean, you already came to an agreement theoretically to keep him here. He got presumably a higher offer to go somewhere else, or he's getting bad information, which is highly possible too. And you have Emmett. So Captain says, I've developed a drinking habit from last season. You and many of the state, my good man. But hey, it's a wild time, and it's too bad. You got a guy that is taking advantage here of this inflated market. Mitch Sherman coming up next on Hail Varsity.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
He is set to unleash the fury. It is Mitch Sherman time with The Athletic. And check out his podcast. I'm sure you do. Locked On Nebraska. Your first listen at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, happy holidays, bud. How we doing?
Happy holidays, guys. I'm good. How are you?
We are good, man. We are just talking Portal Mania, as it's the gift that does keep on giving, giveth and taketh. We'll start off, my friend, with reaction to Dante Dowdell. How big a loss do you think this is?
Well, it's a big loss. Nebraska's leading rusher. Nebraska's leading touchdown scorer. He's the short yardage guy. He's the thunder in the Thunder and Lightning that looked solid in Dana Holgerson's offense the last 3 games of the year. So you got to go out and find somebody who can replace him as a short yardage back. Nebraska doesn't necessarily have that back in its stable right now or among the recruits coming in. So I think what it does is it puts a portal running back on the radar as a priority for Nebraska. I mean, really, anytime you lose a player, what it is, and I think where we're getting in college football as fans and observers of the sport is you have to, unless you lose your most indispensable player or you're one of your few players who are in that indispensable category, you have to be able to shrug it off. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself through a lot in the offseason. This is the way it goes now, and they leave, but those players also come out the other side and are available for programs like Nebraska to be able to attain. Much more so for Nebraska than for some programs that lose a player, the likes of Dante Dowdell. So they'll be on the hunt for a back, I'm sure.
Mitch Sherman with us here. And Mitch, what do you think they'll be looking for when they are looking for a quote-unquote replacement? Because the two things that Dowdell provided to you, or at least from what we saw at the end of the season with Holgerson at the helm, was that Dowdell was going to be a guy that in the flow of the game got probably 5 to 10 carries as your fill-in guy whenever Emmett Johnson needed a breather. And then to flip it around, he was also your short yardage back, the guy you put in on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal, whatever it may be. When you need to pick up a yard or two, you put in Dowdell. The two sides of that is, do you think that a Dowdell type as your fill-in is the way you want to go with that? Do you still need a short yardage back? What type of guy are you going to be looking for to replace him?
You need somebody who can get tough yards. You need somebody that you can be confident giving the ball to on the goal line, and he got pretty good at that. Was stopped at Ohio State, and that was a spotting issue, and that was all messed up. Remember that play? Could have made the difference in that game. Probably not, but might have made the difference in that game. So you need somebody who can thrive in that situation. Somebody on the 50-yard line you can give it to on 4th and 1. And I think Emmett Johnson is capable of those of making those kind of runs, but you don't want to put too heavy of a load on him. He's an every down back, but there are specialty backs, and I think in the era of the 105-man roster in football, you're going to see rosters that are structured more and more like the NFL. And in the NFL, you often have someone who is the guy you lean on when you get into a short yardage situation. So it doesn't need to be someone who can only do that, who's limited to that. But I think that needs to be the strength of the player that you bring in to replace Dowdell, of the player that you add from the portal to the running back room.
Mitch, one of the additions is Jalen George, defensive lineman from Eastern Tennessee State University, lower-level ball player, but looks like there's that great word, some upside and some athleticism, and we know how thin Nebraska is moving forward on the defensive line.
I think the big thing there is it's just a position of need. Mm-hmm. Nebraska has some young players. Nebraska has Riley Van Poppel on the interior of the line, and we'll see if George projects as somebody who's more of an edge or an interior player. At 260, he's going to have to put on size to be an interior player in the Big Ten, but he was effective and athletic in the SoCon, all first team, all Southern Conference, FCS level. So, yeah, I think I think you're right, Chris. What you have there is somebody who you feel has a lot left in the tank, a lot to give, a lot to grow, and can be a defensive lineman who makes things happen in the trenches.
It's Mitch Sherman with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Mitch, whenever you look at Nebraska's transfer portal wish list, where do they need starters and where do they need rotational pieces, in your opinion? Whenever you go through the list of names that Nebraska's apparently been in contact with or guys that are going to be on campus here soon.
Well, I think they need starters on the offensive line. I don't think that Nebraska has an offensive line right now that can be considered top half of the Big Ten with the pieces that are coming back. And I understand it's a balancing act for Holgorsen and Donovan Raiola to make the numbers work, because there's 20-plus offensive linemen in the program, and you're going to have to be under that number when you structure a 105-man roster. But I think you're going to need to be over where Nebraska's at right now in terms of pieces that you look at as day one starters. Nebraska has, 3 linemen with significant starting experience who are coming back, and Henry Lutovsky, Justin Evans, and Gunnar Gatula. And I think that Teddy Prohaska is very much a wild card. I think that Turner Corcoran is probably something even less likely than a wild card to be someone that you can count on just because of the history that he's had and whether he has the desire to want to be back for a 6th year. So I think you have to look at this as you have 2 spots minimum that you want to be able to fill with starting caliber players. And the offensive line is just such a huge part of everything that you need to be able to do on the offensive side. It's how you protect the quarterback. It's how you run the football. So that, to me, now that Nebraska has done some work and gotten Williams Nwaneri and gotten Jalen George, continue to work on the defensive side. That's where the most losses have come via the portal. But I think the offensive line is a priority. Unless you're going to plan to take players who were redshirts and second-year players in the program that haven't gotten into the 2 deep and turn them into starters. And that's a gamble in the Big Ten. I think those players need time to work their way in. So beyond that, you can see that Nebraska is looking for wide receivers. I like the players who were there in the wide receiver group, but clearly they've identified that as a position where they want to add at least one known commodity. Nebraska's had success in bringing in wide receivers historically. That's the position that's been most impacted by portal additions, and I think that they've targeted that and want to do that again, whether it's Dane Key or one of the other wide receivers who's come in on a visit or is planning to come in on a visit here this week. So I put those 2 at the top of the list. You need a punter. I think you need a little bit of help in the linebacker room. I think you need a backup quarterback, and now you need a running back. So there's still a lot out there to get.
Mitch Sherman's with us. Mitch, what's your read on Borkature? Any feel?
I don't think Nebraska will get him back. I think that he went in and tested the waters, and he's received enough good response, that he's going to go somewhere and make it a good situation for himself. Unless there's just that passion and drive to finish his career as a Cornhusker, in which case I don't know that he would have gone in the portal to begin with. And that's not to say I think that Nate does have a ton of pride, and being a guy from Aurora, he's going to feel that. But he made the decision to go in, and I don't think it was solely just. I don't think this is the same situation that we saw with Emmett Johnson and Keona Davis. I think he has real intentions to look around, and perhaps those guys did too. But there was also some leverage in play there, I think, with those situations, and I don't think that's as much what it is with Bork. I think he ends up on another roster and probably at a big time program.
Mm-hmm. Mitch, going to go to volleyball. Huskers back in the Final Four, and just commonplace. Coach Cook and crew make it look easy. And some thoughts as it's round 3 with Penn State Thursday night.
Yeah, Nebraska's going to be trying to get revenge on what happened a couple of weeks ago in State College. I mean, that was a meaningful match. It was meaningful for several players on the Penn State roster, 2 players in particular, Maggie Mendelson and Caroline Juravicius on the Penn State roster, who are ex-Nebraska players and had a thing or two that they wanted to show John Cook and those Huskers, and they were at home. They were playing for a share of the Big Ten championship. Nebraska, as long as it took care of business the next day at Maryland, was assured a share. Of course, the Huskers wanted to win it outright, but I think Penn State had a motivational edge in that match, that last home match of the year, regular season home match of the year, and I think Nebraska will have as much of a motivational edge on Thursday in Louisville as Penn State enjoyed the last time. I think Nebraska's a more talented, better team. So I think the way Nebraska played on the defensively at the net and in the back row and getting balls up against Wisconsin in the regional final, there's one team out there that has what it takes, that has everything it takes to beat that Nebraska, and that's Pitt. But I would like to see that matchup, and I don't know. I don't know if that would even be enough. Pitt is loaded, but we'll see. I'm excited to see it. I do think that we'll see Nebraska Pitt on Sunday. So if that's the case, it could be pretty epic.
If Nebraska lifts another national championship trophy, Mitch, why will they be the ones to do it this year? What about this team makes you think that they are a team that can go and win it all?
I think it's kind of a team of destiny. I mean, this is a 2-year story with this group. Obviously, everybody was back or had the option to come back from last year's team, and a few players transferred, and Nebraska added a couple of freshmen, and Nebraska added Taylor Landfair as a transfer from Minnesota. But it's the same core. It's the same core senior group and sophomore group, and you have Rebecca Alec as a junior, and she's a huge part of the core too. So I think they're driven by what happened in Tampa last year, and if Nebraska's raising the trophy, like you said, Elijah, on Sunday afternoon, I think so much of it can be credited to what happened last year in December.
Mitch, what are you working on, bud, with The Athletic here about 20 seconds before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just a lot of catch-up on the portal, updates on what's happening there, some thoughts on other things around Nebraska football this month, coaching moves and such. That'll be up on The Athletic tomorrow. And then I'm going to devote a lot of the rest of my week to volleyball. I'll be in Louisville on Thursday and Sunday. Perhaps Sunday, definitely Thursday. We'll see about Sunday and go from there.
Mitch, appreciate you much, man. We'll holler again. Thanks for the time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. There he is, Mitch Sherman, with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic. James Williams, come on down to Tallahassee. It's official. We'll have some thoughts. A quarterback to tell you about that Nebraska's trending the right way.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Open phones till 5, and big thanks to Mitch Sherman. Find the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Search Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Mitch Sherman with his last segment. Get caught up on that. And Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 in 25 minutes. Jeremiah Sirles next hour as well. And you kind of look at Nebraska's blueprint, their plan. They are going to spend money to retain talent, to acquire talent. We don't know the numbers, but you got a 5-star in and Waneri, you able to get him from Missouri with all the upside in the world. You want production? Yes. You have your 5-star quarterback sticking and staying in Dylan Raiola. That's nice. That's big. Don't know what you're paying Jalen George, but he's jumping up a level, and you have to figure that you're not spending, who knows, but you're not spending what you're spending on Waneri, on George with probably a payday if the guy comes in and does well. 3 technique, 5 technique, played outside linebacker in high school, and is an athlete that you think will get to the quarterback. Does he put on weight to go on the interior? So, Nebraska is going to NFL this thing here with roster financial management. What are your prospects like for World and Fa Amore? And I butchered that. Forgive me, big Samoan dude from Washington State. But those are the 2 prize tackles that are going to command silly money. But Mitch is right. You need help on the offensive line. And, you have Gatula and Bricks are your 2 tackles. Segrin also is somebody that was in your 2 deep. But where are you at along the development? And those guys take time. And you pray that they don't bolt right when they get ready. After all the work you put in, you got to keep them happy. And then look at Washington State. I mean, that's where Ward was and then got paid at Miami. Washington State, their quarterback's in the portal and could command crazy money. The quarterback I'm thinking of, and you've got over half of your top prospects, your 4- and 5-star dudes, Elijah, from Dylan's class are in the portal. All right, one of those, number 27 in the country, is Marcos Davila, the Purdue player. That it sounds like Nebraska has made a nice impression on. If you can add him, that's fantastic insurance, whatever you're spending.
And as we kind of talked about yesterday, it's a guy that I think fits the mold of what Dylan Raiola is as a quarterback, maybe a little bit better than Danny Kaelin. Not to say Danny Kaelin wasn't a fine option to have in the back, but it's nice to have quarterbacks that can kind of replicate each other so you can run the same things, and that's kind of how I feel about Davila. Mm-hmm. We do have Dave here on the phone line.
All right, Dave, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
4th and 1, 1st and goal. You put in Tyson Terry. I think he could get it done.
He can find the end zone.
Ty Robinson, he could find the end zone. They'd run from him.
Yeah, you have big body. You have big body option. You got Elijah Judy coming back, Dave. I mean,
yeah.
No, I know.
Ty Robinson run a few, or was he the lead blocker on some of them?
No, I know. A little Refrigerator Perry tribute. I get it. Dowdell's ceiling, though, if the guy could develop some vision, man, you just wonder about the cutback and the bruising ability to run, and maybe he gets some breakaway. But you love having him you would have loved having him as an option, just pounding away in the 4th quarter.
The receiver from Littleton, Colorado. I can't think of his name.
Turch?
Did you see any of the film on him? Yeah. I watched the film on him. I'd want to talk to the guy that was throwing in the ball. That guy was throwing 50 and 60-yard passes right on the money. I don't know if he's going somewhere yet, but yeah, watching that receiver, I thought, wow, the guy throwing the ball to him is not bad either.
No, there are plenty of bodies, plenty of options, but you got to choose wisely and spend wisely.
Yep. Tyson Terry would save you the money. You already paid him to be there. Go ahead and use him.
Give him the bonus, touchdown bonus structure.
I love it.
Dave, you take care, bud. Appreciate it. There we go.
Thanks.
489-1240 to get in, or can send an email, Chris@hailvarsity.com. gmail.com. So, hey, a fix is just a phone call or signature or blank check away, Elijah.
It is. But as you kind of laid out with Dowdell, what stings, I do think, of any of the guys you have on roster at the running back position, at least that we've seen, he's got the most NFL feel to him. Where, as you talked about, what does he lack? He lacks a little bit of make you miss in the open field, and he lacks the ability to hit the correct hole with the right timing, which are two things.
That's coachable.
You would think.
I mean, you can work.
Some of those, both of those abilities have a little bit of natural feel to them, but you can get them better.
You can work on your game.
Yes,
it's like you and me at on the green or the tee box. We're always going to suck, but we can suck less.
And you thought with a little more development, a couple more years in the program, could Dowdell potentially be an NFL guy? I think so, and I think wherever he ends up, the team that is looking at him probably thinks he's got the measurables to go out there and be an NFL guy with the proper coaching, get him developed in the right areas. But again, to get back to my original point, I don't think he's irreplaceable with what his role was going to be in the offense specifically next year. And that's what we're looking at with college football right now. It's very year to year in terms of what do I need to have on my roster this year. Obviously, you have to have an eye for the future, but every decision is coming with the idea of, okay, what is next year going to be? And in terms of what next year was going to be specifically, I think Dowdell is not necessarily irreplaceable.
You know what's not irreplaceable is finding some dude who can pin the other team inside the 5. This is now official from Pete Nakos from On3, and about 10 minutes ago. We're late to the party. But you got Jack McAllister. We were talking about him once he went into the portal. You get a year of action Jack from Washington now to Nebraska, averaging 42 yards a kick, longest 62, 12 punts inside the 20, 8 50-plus yard boomers. You will take it, and you had to go there. You just didn't know what was in the old cupboard. You got some options still developing that may not be ready yet. So you might as well go to the portal and get your punter.
Exactly, because it's a year-to-year thing. What do you have next year? And what do I think Nebraska has next year when you look at the special teams? I think you have a kicker with John Hull. I think he kind of proved that over the back half of the season. I think
you got a snapper.
You got Gellick, the snapper, who, that's the best way to put it. The best way to put it is the long snapping ability is very transferable between conferences. I don't think your ability to throw a football between your legs is going to change because of the size of the guys across the line of scrimmage.
Job.
So you got that. Now you got a punter I think you feel confident in. So is Nebraska's special teams fixed? No. But some of the main culprits that caught a lot of ire from last year, I think those spots have been fixed.
You still got to, get a punt return once in a while. Am I asking too much?
That's a lot to ask, Schmidt. It's been a decade.
Am I asking too much? But it's nice to have the kicking problem presumably fixed. We'll wind down hour 1 with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you one final time this hour. Michael Bruntz, 10 minutes away. We'll talk portaling targets with Bruntsy. And you got a right tackle from Wake Forest that's checking Nebraska out tomorrow. Adam True, and national recruiting analyst, Wake Forest for Trost. So Nebraska will host him tomorrow. Then it's off to Mississippi State, and he'll check out the Bulldogs. So good on Nebraska for getting another right tackle in, or another option on the offensive line. It is just moving with the names, the talent, and then, quite frankly, the fit and the puzzle pieces. They're incredibly important. Be sure to subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube, like and subscribe, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio, and search Hail Varsity Radio with Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Game Dog mentioned Caleb Benning as a return option. I want to see some Caleb Benning in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. Super talent.
Well, you just make a list of guys that are young that you want to see in the bowl game.
You do, but I mean, you have. I mean, Benning's always just performed, dude. Big games, big moments, difference maker, playmaker, and you want to see that at the college level for him. So pretty cool. You got a whole secondary, man, that you're anxious to see and pat the old guys on the back. Thank you for everything. But the young guys, those Florida dudes as well. I mean, there's some anticipation. There's some excitement for that.
Well,
because you're searching for things to get buzzed about for the Pinstripe Bowl. Yes, it's a bowl game, but at least you're going to see some new faces.
That's what I'm going to ask. Make a list of a couple of guys that you're excited to see, Schmidt, that you think we're going to see. Because the first one that comes to mind now with today's news, Mekhi Nelson.
Yes, boom.
Huge name that I think we're finally going to get a chance to see in the bowl game with Dowdell being out the door. Who you going to have at backup running back? You look at Mekhi Nelson or possibly Quentin Ives as being guys. So Mekhi Nelson's a huge one for me. You get to see more of him. How does the combination inside of Van Poppel and Keona Davis look? Because I think that's probably going to be your two guys that are rotating in for Nash and Ty. You're going to see plenty of them next to each other. As you laid out Benning, I want to see a little more Amari Sanders. What guys do you want to see?
No, I mean that's not to steal your work, but it's. I mean, those are the names, man. Those are the names, and quite frankly, what does I don't know if he's ushered into duty or what, but do we see some Grant Bricks? Right? Because, I mean, you're going to, give me a 3 tight end set, but 2 of those tight ends could be extra tackles against Boston College's werewolf off the edge. Protect old number 15 by any means necessary. And if that means going max protect, so be it. Because that's a real thing to worry about come the 28th. Boston College's pass rush ability, and the guy's name I can't pronounce is a horrible professional that led the nation in sacks with 16.5. But I will listen intently to the press conference Thursday on Zoom with Boston College's coordinators, because I'm sure we'll ask about the guy who led the country in sacks up there in Chestnut Hill. Beautiful area, apparently, Boston College. Michael Bruntz, more thoughts on the portal, some Husker football talk on the way. It's Hail Varsity Hour 2 here on the Hail Varsity Radio Network.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for hanging out at Tower 2. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Yay or nay, Bruntsy, you're wearing donkey gear?
Nay. I had to check though. So, when and we're in, right? That's that's what's going on this weekend. So yeah, I'm it's nice to be out of in the hunt column and in the actual playoff discussion.
Well, we talked about it 2 months ago on this show. Like, what would leave you happy as a Broncos fan if they're in the hunt for a wild card spot during these weeks? That's been accomplished. And let's be clear, the path to the playoffs pretty favorable for the Broncos. Like, you need one of 3 teams between the Dolphins, Colts, and Bengals would have to win out, and the Broncos would have to lose out. So, like, could that happen? Probably. I've seen a lot in the past 8 years, but
yeah,
I feel pretty good.
There's a chance.
The Bengals are going to win out, and it's going to just absolutely infuriate everybody.
Kind of hope that happens, actually.
It's all going to come back to that stupid blocked field goal in Kansas City. That's what's going to happen. Everything's going to happen bad, and it's going to be that stupid blocked field goal. That's what's going to That's the true Denver fan in me coming out there.
Deep breath, both of you. It'll be okay. Nebraska fans pausing. You've got, on one hand, the Dowdell news. We've hit on most of the day. You've got Jalen George in. You've got, don't call him Kevin, but Jack McAllister in from Washington. You got a right tackle you're checking out from Wake Forest and Keegan Trost. Bruntz, it's just fluid, man. Do you have the computer up while you're talking to us?
Yes, I do. Just yes. But, it's funny. It's like the 4 to 6 o'clock hour of the last few days. It's been littered with stuff like this. So always just kind of hanging around the computer. Got the phone working. So it's been busy. It's interesting. I kind of thought that you'd start to see things slow down a little bit, just from like nationally, but there's just been like this steady drumbeat of guys still entering the transfer portal, even late this week. So it's a new calendar. The National Signing Day is long in the rearview mirror, but it's all portal right now. It's funny. I mean, like how much bowl game are you guys discussing right now? And that's
0.
10 or 11 days from now. So that's just the world we live in now, I guess.
Trying to get our arms around who the hell's playing.
Well, Bruntz, as we kind of wrap our arms around the new world of college football, how do you, as a fan or even as a journalist, how do you follow this crazy, weird portal season that we're in right now? Because you hear a name,
whiskey,
and it's like, oh, they're going to be in town tomorrow, and then the next day they're at Oklahoma, the day after that they're at Oregon, and might it be Nebraska? Maybe, but you never know. It seems so fluid on a day-to-day basis. How do you realistically follow it without going insane?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's never any finality. I mean, you even have, deals being signed that all of a sudden a guy, a team thinks they're set at a position going into next year, and then 48 hours later the guy's in the portal. So it's funny. Like there's no like when is the carousel going to stop? I guess, and like this is the roster you're going to play with. They got to get that figured out, because I feel for college coaches right now trying to build a roster, and having to have a solid footing of like what their team is going to look like on the field. It's just really hard to get to right now. So yeah, Chris said whiskey. I think that's a good coping mechanism, but you just kind of ride the waves, and as guys show up on campus, you report it if they. It's funny. I mean, even the visits, it's like, you're going here on Monday, here on Wednesday, here on Friday, and then, 24 hours later, the order is completely different, and some places aren't even visited. So that's just that's how it is.
Michael Bruntz with us, Hail Varsity Radio, and can read Bruntsy with Husker 24/7 Sports. Add Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Great work by him, Shafe, and Brian Christopherson, of course, and we were talking wish list a little bit earlier. What are one or two names you think could fit, you think Nebraska's got a good shot at?
Well, I mean, the big one's Isaiah World, the left tackle. I think what you're seeing right now is, you look at kind of what's in the portal right now, and the tackle position is still pretty thin, and you can just kind of see that by the offers that roll in whenever you have a tackle who hits the portal. I mean, Keegan Trost, who you mentioned, Chris, has been in the portal for only, I think like a day, and Nebraska, Mississippi State, Northwestern, Stanford, Kansas, Virginia, like it's just like one offer after another. And that just kind of shows you that, early in the portal season right now, tackle is a very premium position, and Nebraska has a big need there. I mean, you're replacing Bryce Benhart on one end, and, left tackle, you got down to your third string guy there early in the season. So you got to add there. I'm eager to kind of see what Nebraska kind of does still along the defensive line, because they have added pieces there, and you mentioned Jalen George, but, they need to add more depth there, in my opinion, as well. And they still don't have their defensive line coach on campus yet. I know he has been doing recruiting by phone and helping where he can, but, those are the two areas I'm kind of, curious to see which way the wind blows for Nebraska, because those are just two position groups where, you got to be you got to be old, and we've seen the benefits at Nebraska when you can be a little bit older and a little bit more experienced on the defensive line. So I'm eager. I'm kind of watching that closely. And then, the quarterbacks thing, they had a Purdue transfer, Marcos Davila, on campus yesterday. I think Nebraska's in a really good spot there, but, kind of getting that piece of it, locked down, what I think would be pretty helpful, because you could kind of really go full bore with Heinrich Harburg at tight end and kind of make that position switch stick. So, the thing for Nebraska, though, is you just look at the roster, and I know they have to pare down and, get a little bit closer to that 105, but, they've kind of got needs across the board right now at a number of positions. So it's going to be you got to be patient, I think, and kind of go along for the ride here.
Bruntz, whenever you talk about those needs across the board that Nebraska has, there's obviously going to be guys that need to come in through the portal, but there's also going to need to be younger guys who step up and fill some of these roles where you can't go necessarily find portal guys, or I guess you just have confidence in these young guys. With that in mind, based on the names you're hearing out of the portal, where do you think Nebraska is going to have, or at least expects to have, young guys step up, and who are some of the young guys that you're looking forward to seeing in a bowl game against Boston College?
Hey, there's a bowl game question. I like it.
Take a drink.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm go to New York and send it. Yeah, like I forget about that. No, I mean, I think for me, it's I'm curious to see what that secondary is going to look like. When you just kind of look at the number of the number of guys, scholarship guys on your roster. I mean, there's an outsized number of guys who are in that secondary. And we saw some younger guys kind of start to work their way into the rotation and then on special teams over the last half of the season. I'm talking Caleb Benning. Mari Sanders I think he's at 4 games, and obviously the bowl game doesn't count, so I would expect to see him a little bit. They really like what they have in Larry Tarver as well. So I think I'm eager to see if we see some of those guys in the bowl game. I know that's the group that's going to benefit a ton from these bowl practices. And, when you lose Gifford and they're going to be really thin at safety, Tommy Hill's going to be gone. I mean, that's a group that's going to be a little bit younger next year, but you're going to need some of those guys to step in and kind of be counted. So I'm kind of that's one group I'm kind of watching closely. It will be in the bowl game, and the other one too. What's it going to look like at linebacker? I think you're going to see a lot of Vincent Shavers in that game. He's been really big on being bought in and all about Nebraska on social media, which is great. But he's going to be the man next year at that linebacker spot. So those are, defensively, they're going to be a lot younger next year, and for better or for worse, I think the bowl game is more kind of like a game zero for the 2025 season than it is more so about 2024 right now.
Michael Bruntz with us, Hail Varsity Radio. You have Wright that is going rodeo. One more, final call for him. You have Bayer that ended up down at Missouri. We have Dowdell. Nebraska was able to run it back with Emmett, of course, and Keona was big, and there's been no peeps out of Van Poppel. But
I just want to say, by Wright, you're referring to Sierra, correct? By Wright, you said Wright coming back from the road. Javen Wright's not coming back. You're referring to Sierra, right? Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm saying you have him at linebacker for the bowl game.
Oh,
at least.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm following Bruntzy's wonderful breadcrumbs with the linebacker spot, and it's important to have some bodies and some talent, Bruntzy. But we're trying to figure out, quite frankly, a 3 deep, right, moving forward here in 10 days. What do you think of the O-line, specifically some of those young guys that have been in the old, dare I say, air fryer or oven for going on a couple of years? You've seen Gatula, but what are you hearing about some of those young folks? Shavers and McGahee, yes, at linebacker, but you're trying to look towards your future as well on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious to see how much we actually see of those guys right now. I mean, you kind of look at what you have coming back next year. It's probably, let's see, you got Prohaska coming back. Justin Evans is going to be back. So I think off the cuff, Lutovsky. That you kind of look at what Nebraska's signed the last couple of recruiting classes, and there's guys that there was a highly ranked class. I mean, you've got Grant Bricks that was kind of thought could be a tackle. He's been playing some guard this year. Gibson Pyle was another kind of big win for Nebraska out of Texas, who I think is going to factor in the future for Nebraska as well. Preston Taumua out of Hawaii is the number one player in the state of Hawaii. There's a lot of guys that are kind of in the hopper right now, and Sam Sledge is another guy that's kind of been a regular in the 2D for the last couple of years. Jason Chachok out of South Dakota, the Magic Man. They've got no shortage of options there. It's just going to kind of be whether or not those guys are ready for prime time. And we're not going to see them much in the bowl game, but these are guys that have been second teamers. They've been scout team guys who have been going up against Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmaker for the last 2 years, and really benefiting from that. And that group, I think you're right, Chris, in particular, benefits a ton from a bowl game because you basically get another spring ball of those guys getting all the focus because Nebraska was really intentional about making sure that it was the young guys in there for the first couple of weeks practicing and not the old guys. So, I think, it's telling somewhat that, Nebraska is going to have to go get a tackle just because they feel like a offensive line right now that's very kind of guard heavy. But I think there's a number of guys in that group that they feel pretty good about long term. It's just a matter of, maybe bringing in a veteran here or there that can buy a little bit more time for those guys to where you're not, throwing them in before they're ready. So, hearing good things, but, again, it's going to be a much different looking offensive line next year. I mean, Bryce Benhart started or has played over 50 games in his career. I mean, that's insane. So there's going to be a lot to replace.
Bruntz, about 90 seconds. Does Nebraska try and keep Dowdell? Do they make a counter offer? Do you let him walk?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a guy that when you kind of enter the portal that way, I mean, it feels like there's an idea of kind of what's out there for you in terms of potential. I think Nebraska right now, as it stands, actually has a somewhat crowded running back room for next year. And, I do think there's going to be options there. And I know that among some fans, there's this consternation of, okay, you see Texas Tech getting all these, commitments and guys transferring, but, you still have all these playoff teams that you haven't had guys enter from. You're going to have a whole nother wave of guys enter the portal in the spring. This is kind of a slow burn. I mean, consider that Sierra Wright wasn't even on Nebraska's roster this year until the end of the summer. So I think there's going to be guys out there that they can go and get. And I think sometimes guys are just really intent on seeing what's out there, seeing what they can do NIL-wise, and I think for Nebraska that just might be the case with Dowdell.
Bruntz, be good. Blink. Don't get those red eyes staring at the screen and hammering the sources. We'll check it again soon.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
There he is, Michael Bruntz. Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. What's Sirles say? He's on the way next with Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We say hi to Papa Sirles. Talk some Nebraska football. And Sirles, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, dude. How you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Good to be back on the show. Been kind of running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but it's been good. Just pre-draft stuff, really ramping up for the agency stuff.
Well, excited for you. Another season of representation. That's outstanding. So I'm going to go off the board before we get into football. If you had a cowboy hat on and aviators, you would be Rip's bigger, meaner, tougher brother from Yellowstone.
I wish.
So I ask, how would you have alternately ended Yellowstone? Have you seen the ending?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. I got to gig on it. It's a show that the wife and I want to watch together. She goes to sleep at 8:30, right? So it's one of those, like, hey, let's watch it. She's like, oh, so tired. I'm like, I'm never going to get through this. I'm never.
So you've started it, or you've not even started?
I'm on episode 1.
Okay.
Right? So like we're trying to work our way through it on the new season here.
All right. Well,
no spoilers, please.
Swing and a miss.
I know that's on me. I'll wear that one.
No, that's fine. Find Sirles on Twitter at jsirles71. It is the Wild West of college football. So
nice save.
Portal. Reaction to Dowdell.
Bummer. I think that's a big bummer. I think that he and Emmett Johnson could have been a fantastic 1-2 punch like they were here. I don't really understand why he would want to leave unless Dana Holgorsen straight up was like, Emmett's our guy, which I doubt Dana would do. That's not a smart thing to do from an offensive coordinator's perspective. So bummer to see him go. I thought he was a great fit here. I thought he did a lot of good things for us as a running back here. But obviously guys have other motives, whether it's money related, playtime related, fit related, whatever it may be. So big time bummer to see him go.
And how would it change things, Charles? No inside scoop here. Whenever you see a guy go into the portal so much later after everybody else does, it kind of makes you go, does Nebraska have somebody in their back pocket they're bringing in? They tell Dowdell about it, and now Dowdell's out the door. And no inside info here. I'm just spitballing. But yeah, it's the weird reality timing of college football, yeah.
And it is weird timing. You would think if he was going to enter the portal, because I'll tell you this, working with collectives and working with guys in the portal right now, a lot of people's money is spent. Right? I mean, a lot of it's kind of tiered. If you watch NFL free agency, right? Big top dollars get done early, and then after that, the dollar value drops every single day that you're not signed in NFL free agency. Little bit similar to college football free agency, where the big time portal recruits are going to get signed right away, get the big time deal, and then things are going to start to trickle. So the timing of it is interesting. So you might be onto something there, Elijah. Again, I don't know. But you might be onto something, but also things can change internally of hires and coaches having conversations with guys right now, how bowl prep practices are going, right? There's a lot of stuff that's writing on the wall that we'll never know about.
Sirles, when we look at hierarchy, it's quarterback, it's offensive tackle, it's edge, it's wide out. I mean, it can go a whole bunch of different spots, but as you've been working with collectives, how much has the top dollar risen?
Oof. I mean, I know guys that have late day 3 to PFA grades from the NFL that are making $750K a year, right? I mean, as far as I've heard of guys, quarterbacks that are backup quarterbacks that have played a couple snaps at big time schools getting offered well north of 1.5, right? So the dollar value is higher, in my opinion, than even NFL rookie minimum salaries, and it's still really surprising to me to see the amount of juniors that have declared for the NFL this year. Right? I thought it would be the complete opposite, right? If you're in the NFL and you're a junior, if you're in the junior in college, you've got a mid day 3 grade, right, or even a day 3 grade at all, why not stay in school and guaranteed make what you would make under rookie minimum salary and then try again? So, I mean, the dollar amount's getting crazy. We're not really sure how the rev share model is going to change all of that, right? I think what people are trying to do is negotiate, hey, first half of the year, first 8 months is going to be from the collective. Then we're going to shift to this rev share model. Here's what it's going to look like, right? It's still the Wild West. I mean, and really the rev share model still has to get cleared through Congress, right? It's still not a for sure thing, right? So there's just a ton of moving pieces that have to go into it. And it's why you're seeing universities, Nebraska, Tennessee, whatever, create front offices. They're creating scouts, GMs, cap guys, right? Like it all is going to start to mimic what an NFL organization looks like.
And I know we're about a week late on this news, Sirles, but with this in mind, what's your reaction? Bill Belichick, an NFL guy, setting up a real NFL-type front office with North Carolina. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be a disaster, personally. I think he's an unbelievable football coach. I think he knows the game better than just about anyone. He's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. I can't see him sitting in a 16, 17-year-old room and inspiring. Right, like we're gonna come in here and get off the Insta-face, and we're just gonna focus on the ball. And that doesn't work in today's college football. I think there's gonna be a ridiculous amount of transfers at the spring portal window coming out of North Carolina. I just don't see a world in which this ends very well for them.
We've talked to a few guys that have played for Belichick, and Twitter's been quite hilarious with just still photos of Belichick, yelling at a guy for failing a history class, let's just say, and it was hilarious. But you did what? How did you fail this course? I mean, he has always kept guys on their toes, whether you're a Tom Brady, a Gronk, or a practice squad guy. I mean, that's the method to his madness. You've always got to be ready, and it works or you're gone. But the personality, I mean, I just don't see him being able to be warm, touchy, and feely to his star. Wasn't in the NFL. He won't be to an 18-year-old.
And, so much the difference of, like you said, in the NFL, you do it my way. Okay, you don't. I got 1,000 people knocking at the door that want your job. College football is so much about development. Hey, we're going to bring you in. Here's the plan to make you into this starter, to make you into an NFL player. I don't know if Bill's ever done that. Like, has he ever truly just developed in the last 20 years, or has he been handed guys that are already NFL players and made them better? Very different thing of, hey, here's the elites of the elites that have made it in the door of the NFL versus, hey, we have to bring this guy that maybe is still growing into his frame, growing into his body, needs some development from a physical standpoint, but also from an emotional standpoint, like to grow into from an 18-year-old to a 22-year-old when he finally leaves this place. It's one of those things that, can Bill do it? Probably, because he's an unbelievable coach. Does he want to do it? I don't know if he's going to get into college football and be like, this is dumb, and I don't know what I signed myself up for.
It's Jeremiah Sirles with us here. And Sirles, as we talk about kind of the changing world of college football, what are your thoughts on kind of the changes we've seen from Nebraska and from Matt Rule this offseason, where you come in, a pretty reworked staff on both sides of the ball, seems to be more emphasis on hitting the transfer portal here. There's a lot of guys hitting the door that you got to go replace. What are your thoughts on just how the rebuild has readjusted itself seemingly this offseason?
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job. You adapt with the times, right? I mean, you can be like Dabo Swinney and bury your head under a rock and not believe the transfer portal's real and get hit over the head with it in a couple years, or you embrace the change. College football's changing. It's more like an NFL system now. You're going to have a revolving roster that you're going to have to replace holes, refill holes, right? You're going to have guys that you don't think you have a chance at getting that are going to fall to your lap in the portal, right? And the ability to adapt your staff is going to be really important too, because did we all know that Tony White was probably gone after this year? Yes. Do I think that's why he went and got Bill in the offseason this year to come be the defensive backs coach and then seamlessly transition him in instead of, hey, I got to go outside and hire? Yes. Like, I see the plan that Rule has put into place. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he sees the long-term plan. The rebuild is right on pace, right? We started the year so hot. I think everyone had this inflated expectation of what we could actually be. This is about where I thought we'd be. A 6-7 win team, right? Going a chance. We gave ourselves a chance to beat Iowa at the end of the game. Now we get to go to a bowl game, finish the year on a strong suit. I think the rebuild is right on track.
Sirles, you spent time in Buffalo. You have some teammates that played for Coach Butler, and he's wanted to be a coordinator, and he hasn't been a coordinator since you played Penn State. So he's got a shot now. He's been elevated. They've gone and added pretty key pieces, D-line coach, outside linebackers coach. You got Dvorak. You've got a secondary guy we think's on his way. How do you think Butler adjusts not only in the bowl game, but also moving forward here? What do you think? Can Nebraska, dare I even whisper, upgrade at defensive coordinator?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be a tough thing to upgrade with the bar that Tony White set. But I'll be very curious to see schematically what he wants. In Buffalo, they ran a predominantly 4-down front when I was there, right? 4-down, 4, more of the traditional 4-3-4-2. We've been running the 3-3-5. Does he adapt the 3-3-5? Does he revert back to a 4-2? Is it a hybrid of the two? So the first question I'm going to look at is, what is the scheme? Like, schematically, what are we doing? Because is it drastically different for the bowl game, or is he going to roll with what we have for the bowl game and then reinstall his offense in the spring? So, I give him a lot of grace. I think that you're not going to be able to look at the bowl game and go, wow, that's Butler's defense, right? There's a lot that's going to be moving on there. But I do think that he has great NFL experience. He's coached some wonderful players in the NFL, all-pro guys like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White. and everyone in between. So I'm really excited to see what he can do. And obviously Matt Rule's the defensive coordinator at heart, right? Defensive guy. So there's going to be a lot of collaboration on that piece. And then just trying to pick apart your staff to put together of, hey, I trust this guy to know that position of how I want it coached and the whole bit there. So I'm going to give the guy a lot of leash to go out and build your defense, man. Go build what you want to build it and do it your way.
Sirles, we haven't spent all that much time on the bowl game because of the craziness of the past week and a half, 2 weeks. What are your thoughts on the bowl game, the matchup with Boston College, and just the importance of going out there and getting a win? Does it matter?
Yeah, it does matter. And it doesn't matter for the record and the using odds, but it matters for the momentum heading into the offseason for the winter conditioning program, the spring ball, the recruiting. Like, everything is better when you end on a winning note. And I know that from losing 3 bowl games that I went to in a row, right? It's not fun to end your season on a losing note and go back to winter conditioning 3 weeks later and be like, ugh, that taste is still awful and I can't get it out until September, right? Versus you finish on a high note and now everyone's excited, rolling in, hey, look what we did. Look at everything we could build with. Like, it really is a morale thing, winning a bowl game. But also, I'm really excited for the young guys to go to a bowl and get to experience that, because they're going to get that feeling of what a bowl game is. Man, I want to go to this every single year, right? Not to hit on a back in my day piece, but when I played, it was never a question of, oh, are we going to a bowl game? It was like, hey, we're going to go to a bowl game. It just depends which one we're going to go to. That's what we need to get back to, or that's just the norm. You come to Nebraska, it's like, hey, we're going to go for a bowl game. We're not worried about that. We're competing for conference championships. This is the first step getting there.
Jeremiah Sirles with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Do you have a grade, or is it incomplete right now with the season?
It's incomplete. I think I want to see how we finish. Obviously it's hard when you change coordinators in the middle of the year. Now your D coordinator's gone, right? You're going to miss some pieces. But, if I had to put an end of regular season grade on it, I'd probably have us at like a C+, B-, right? I thought that, if the offense could have been better in the middle part of the year, found more ways to score touchdowns, found ways to get to 21 points, you're flirting right up there with a solid B to B+, but just the lack of consistency and the lack of ability to score points for our defense, our offense, and then put our defense in bad positions where they let up one bad play against USC and we lose the football game. Those are really hard to put your defense in those positions week in and week out.
Are you in awe of how this year went? And I know it's been the same movie, but it almost felt intensified this year, not just with SC, not just with UCLA, not just with Illinois, but the final insult, so to speak, with Iowa. I mean, it was almost, Sparty 2.0 with how well the defense played, but you give up one play, and then a strip sack happens, and fare thee well, game over, field goal at the buzzer.
It's tough to watch because you do feel like, gosh, dude, I've watched this movie before and I know how it ends, and you just keep hoping it's going to change. But young quarterback, right? That's why I give it a nod of a little, okay, freshman quarterback. He's got to learn. He's got to grow. I still feel like this offense is in a better place than it was a year ago at this time. I think that it's going to continue to get better with Dana Holgorsen at the helm. Everything for me is pointing in the right direction offensively, that we're going to get this thing right on track and get going again. And I'm going to have to keep believing that till September, or I might go crazy.
Well, Sirles, let's go there. Where does Dylan Raiola need to get better? And I'm talking specifically in the passing game. And then as a follow-up to that, what do you want to see from the rushing attack improve upon this offseason? Where does the offense need to get better as a whole, I guess?
Yeah, they're twofold. They work well together, right? The rushing attack needs to get better because the play-action game needs to get better for Dylan Raiola. If you just ask a quarterback to just drop back over and over and over again, bad things are going to happen. Ask Joe Burrow. Right? It's not good. But if you can have a quarterback that can hand the ball off, have a consistent running game, and take some high percentage completion throws with play actions, move the pocket, roll out type things, those give quarterbacks confidence. Where Dylan needs to be a little bit better, in my opinion, this will just get better with age, is getting rid of the football, not trying to force it, taking what the defense gives you, right? Understanding that you can't roll out of the pocket. You're not Lamar Jackson. You're not Josh Allen, right? You are who you are. It's okay. Live to fight another day, but don't create when you don't have to create. It's okay for first down. It's not there. Dirt it. Live to fight another day. Don't compound things by trying to force the issue. And I think that's just going to continue to get better and better with him with age.
Sirles, want to get your take here on some NFL here before we wind it down. Your Vikings, the Fighting Dwight Schrutes, 12-2, looking incredible. Josh Allen, your dear pal, and the Bills, Mr. MVP. Could we see them in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, if I had to put money on it right now, I'd probably say it's in the Eagles-Buffalo Super Bowl. That's probably where I'd plant the flag. I mean, the Eagles, if they weren't...
That pains you to say, too.
It does, in a big way. But if the Eagles weren't such a dumpster fire internally, I think everyone in the NFL would be talking about how they're the best team in the NFL, right? They haven't lost a game since September. They're on an unbelievable streak. They have one of the best running back when they have Smith and they have A.J. Brown, two of the best receivers. Jalen Hurts can do it all, one of the best offensive lines in football, and that defensive front is just getting more and more momentum every week. But then you just have Brandon Graham going on a radio show talking about how Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown aren't friends anymore, and it's just kind of a disaster internally versus the Buffalo Bills are on a historic offensive run right now. I mean, Josh Allen is just dragging his nuts across everybody, and it is incredible to watch.
Sirles, with the Eagles, and I think I kind of brought this up last week with the Lions as well, and I think the Lions are also riddled with injuries, which doesn't help. But is peaking too soon a real thing in the NFL, where you talk about the fact the Eagles haven't lost a game since September? Now you start seeing some internal strife. Is just generally speaking, peaking too soon a problem in the NFL?
No, I don't think it's a problem in the NFL. I think it's a problem if you start to decline. If you can peak and maintain, great. It's impossible to think you're just going to climb the ladder all the way through, right? But you can't start declining into December, which is exactly what happened to the Eagles last year. The snowball started and they couldn't stop it, right? Which I think is what's going to start happening to the Kansas City Chiefs, hopefully. But I do think that the Eagles right now are hitting stride. I think they're getting healthy again, right? Everyone's getting back. If Nick Sirianni can just get out of his own way and let them play, I really do think that they're probably the best team in the NFL right now.
On the flip side of that, Sirles, which teams potential dark horse candidates for you in each conference in terms of peaking at the right time? Mike Tomlin's always going to have the Steelers ready to go whenever you get into the postseason. That's a team I'm circling. Who are you circling in terms of teams that you think might be peaking at the right time going into postseason, could make a dark horse type run?
The LA Rams, my friends. Do not write them off. They are getting healthy. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford's, looking at some of the best football he's played of his career here down the stretch. They're getting healthy again, right? They have looked really impressive. They beat the Vikings on Thursday night. They go beat the Niners. They just vaulted Seattle in the NFC West. They're going to host a home playoff game. That is a team I would not want to run into on that side of the ball. You flip it on the other side, the Ravens are still so incredibly talented. Right. I mean, they have Lamar Jackson, who is, again, in the MVP race, Derrick Henry. They are incredibly talented. They've dribbled down the stretch here. They haven't looked complete, but that's a team, if you catch them on a Sunday when they're putting everything together, really tough team to beat.
What about the Buccaneers?
Good. Yep, that's mine.
Baker Mayfield's so much fun to watch. I mean, he's so electric. He loves playing the game. Mike Evans is going to have another 1,000-yard receiving season, even if missing 3 games. Vita Vea, Levante David, that's another team that you're not going to want to have to go to on a home playoff game because they're going to win the South because Atlanta's an absolute train wreck.
So aside from his wardrobe, Joe Burrow's had a tough season on the field with minimal help. You get rid of Mixon because Cincy is
cheap.
Cheap, and that they've been cheap since the Dave Remington era. Okay, I mean they just don't spend money, and it's burning them out. Do you think?
I mean, Joe Burrow deserves so much better. I mean, if that dude's on a 500 team, he's the MVP. He's done unbelievable things this year. The problem is that defense is, my goodness, they couldn't stop anything. I mean, they look like the high school team from Gretna could run up and down the field on them. And they haven't spent any money on that side of the ball. They have one pass rusher. Their back end's a disgrace. I mean, you let Russell Wilson come in and cook you for 415 yards a couple weeks ago, and they just can't stop anybody. The Bengals are going to have a lot of trouble. I would think Zach Taylor might be done.
Well, he might want out too. I mean, just get me a better situation. As we wind it down, I need to hear about a Santa episode, Sirles, when you were playing. Did you have someone on the coaching staff dress up as Santa? If not, who should have?
Oh, I don't think we ever had one. But
Bo didn't put on a Santa suit?
No, I don't think Bo ever owned a Santa suit, but I think Barney Cotton would have made a hell of a Santa. I mean, he had the gut for it
over Jamrog?
Yeah, no, I mean, because Barney's big, right? You want that over, you got a hip, right? Like, you always heard Cotton with that deep voice. He would have had a great Santa. Barney would have been an excellent Santa.
Who would have broke Santa's lap? What lineman sitting on his knee?
Andrew Rodriguez. Big old Andrew Rodriguez would have definitely been the you teach me to football, right? That dude was just enormous.
And last thought here, who is the Grinch of that coaching staff?
I mean, Carl, when he was there, was definitely a Grinch type. Tim Beck, sneaky Grinch. Sneaky Grinch, Tim Beck. Sean Watson, sneaky Grinch.
Really?
Yeah. Sean used to always just cry, and it was weird.
What?
Like, quick story. I know we don't have time. Sean would get into we'd get in a team meeting, a team room, and he'd be like, man, I just love you guys so much, and you're playing hard, and keep going. And he'd be like, all right, now when we get to trips right here, we're going to be like, what? Were you just crying, and now you just flip the switch? Like, it was super bizarre. Super bizarre.
Wow.
Super weird. I love you guys so much. All right, and trips right, we're going to run the over route, and we're going to slide it. Like, wait, what? So weird.
Sirles, Merry Christmas to you and your fam, buddy.
Appreciate you guys. Merry Christmas and go Big Red.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Thanks to Jeremiah Sirles. Big thanks to Michael Bruntz. Big thanks to Mitch Sherman. We'll do it again tomorrow. Reminder, road show a week from Friday. We got a little holiday time off with Best Ofs coming up with Hail Varsity. We're back on the air the 27th of December, live from Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino right outside Amerisports. Come see us as we gear you up. Not only plenty of football, NFL, and college, but it is Bowl Game Eve. We've been waiting 8 years to say that. So we'll be on the road at Ameristar at Amerisports Council Bluffs Friday the 27th, weekend edition, of course, the 28th, leading you into Nebraska Boston College. So keep that in the back pocket for us. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play to find the podcast. Just search Hail Varsity Radio. And a reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries. Only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We'll catch up with Evan Bland and more as the portal turns, Elijah, with some offensive tackle chasing for the Big Red.
I mean, that's going to be a position that they put a premium on. What's your feel on Isaiah World?
I think he did it right. He's going to kick Nebraska's tires, and he's going to see who's paying him the most between A&M and Oregon,
which are two teams that are known for spending the most.
They absolutely overspend because they can and don't care. One's in the playoff, one isn't. But, A&M's trending the right way. I'm anxious to see if Nebraska can close the deal on Marcos Davila. That's the quarterback that I think clock is ticking on. Of course, you got good news on McAllister today. You got good news on Jalen George, the defensive lineman. You lost Dante Dowdell. We talked about that at length today, and it does sting, but I think everyone's replaceable, but I think Nebraska can be okay.
And I'm glad you brought up Davila, because is backup quarterback the most important position you'll be locking up in the transfer portal? No. That's why I think it's good that it seems they've locked in on one guy. They have brought that one guy to campus. Seems that things are progressing well. I'm glad you're not wasting unnecessary time there. I feel like you have made an identification, which some of that dates back to Holgerson, his recruiting of Davila out of high school. But you've made your identification in the portal. You've got him on campus. I like how quickly that's moving because it saves time and obviously saves money as well for other positions of need.
I like Nebraska just finding fit. Nwiri, of course, you have all the upside in the world, a former 5-star. You also have Jalen George coming from Eastern Tennessee State University, who's just an athlete. They like what they see there. Doesn't have to be a dude from a Georgia or a Texas. It's nice, but you've seen marginal success from guys from big-name programs. Now, a guy we're anxious to see in year 6 is Elijah Judy, because he was one of those dudes at A&M that was a high-star defensive tackle, and he played some good ball towards the end of the year. Elijah has stayed and grinded and kept trucking. You need that payoff. You just not just literally. You need it to actually happen on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a whole different ball game. So we'll keep tuned in. You keep tuned in, and we'll get ready to tell you how it goes.
And I'd say the same thing about Tyler Canuck, offensive tackle
from Utah.
You need to see that payoff on the field here because it's a guy you've invested a lot into.
No, for sure. And he's someone to think about, too. Talk tomorrow at 4. Thanks.